Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this morning's June 6th, 2024 meeting of the Mojave County Public Lands and Recreation Commission. You join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Commissioner Diaz this morning.
You're not a veteran, uncover. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you do the roll call, please.
Absolutely. Chairman Lingenfelter,
Here.
Commissioner Barlow,
Here.
Vice Chair Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Diaz,
Here.
Commissioner Martin,
Here.
and Commissioner Strecker.
Here.
And it looks like we're missing Steve Letowski, but we have a quorum.
Thank you. Item number 4 this morning on our regular agenda is discussion and possible action regarding July Public Lands and Recreation Commission meeting. Just to,
Chairman,
yes.
just if we want to reschedule it for another time in July or just wait until August because it does fall on the 4th of July.
It does fall on the 4th, correct? Yeah. So,
So if we want to wait.
question to the commission, do you want to meet another day in July, or do you just want to cancel that meeting and then just the next meeting would be in August?
I say add it to the next meeting, Chair.
Is that a motion to, or discussion point to just wait till August?
I
Commissioner-
would prefer that we do it on another day because we got so much stuff going on. I think if we wait till August, we got a lot of things going on.
Sure.
And I think we ought to act on them.
that's what this discussion is for. Commissioner Strecker?
I would second probably Commissioner Martin's proposal for
No, we were scheduled for a different day in
different day.
July.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion points on that? Whether we schedule for an additional day in July or just meet in August? Any other comments from Commissioner Barlow or Commissioner Smith?
I would go with another day in July.
I agree with that.
Okay. Madam Clerk, would you do us a favor and reach out to all the commissioners? And actually, do we need to decide on a date right now in the form of a motion, or
It would be beneficial.
Yeah,
That way we have
okay.
it planned for what it's going to be instead.
does everybody
So
have their calendars in front of them?
the following Thursday would be the 11th, if Thursday is still a day of the week that is preferable for everybody, but we could.
So we've got the 11th, we've got the 18th, and we've got the 25th as Thursdays in July. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to move our meeting from July 4th to July 11th.
Thank you. You've heard that motion.
Second.
For that motion, second additional discussion. Does that work for everybody? All in favor?
And at the same time, at 10 a.m.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You guys appear to have it. Do have it so ordered. Thank you. All right, item number 5, discussion of amendments to Mojave County Zoning Ordinance Section 12.2, Energy Overlay Zone, Section 37.A, Special Uses, and Section 37.U, Energy Projects, with a presentation given by Development Services Director Scott Holtry. And with that, I would turn that over to you, Director Holtry.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity. The board on Monday voted on this ordinance, and I kind of just wanted to address some of the changes that were made, what we proposed, and what we're looking for going forward. The proposal, the main thing that we were looking at as we were revising this ordinance is to essentially remove the energy overlay zone from the Mojave County zoning ordinance. So previously, and we discussed this in earlier meeting, but previously you could apply for an energy overlay zone almost anywhere in the county. That was becoming a little bit problematic. You could also apply for a special use permit to allow for an energy project anywhere, almost anywhere in the county as well. Staff did a lot of research. We looked at a lot of different jurisdictions. The main thing that we saw was that a lot of other jurisdictions allow for these projects outright in their industrial type zones. Staff was recommending that we allow the same thing, that the energy projects, so your solar or your wind projects, would be allowed in those industrial zoned properties. Those industrial zone properties allow for more intense uses like refineries, like power plants, like manufacturing, and we felt like your solar, your wind projects would fit in with those types of uses as well. The other proposal is that you could still apply for a special use permit in the more rural parts of the county, and we had some strict requirements as far as if you could apply. At the Board of Supervisors meeting, we had a lot of discussion, and ultimately the decision was to just allow them in the manufacturing zones. And so there's actually two zones that we're allowing them in. It's the MX zone, which is our heavy industrial zone, and the M2 zone, which is our general manufacturing zone. We do have quite a few of those zones throughout the county. We have our industrial corridor south of I-40. That's actually where we have a few solar projects going forward right now in those MX zones. And then we do have some out near the airport and some other locations just here in the vicinity and then out throughout the county as well. But they're not located in your more residentially zoned areas. And so we're not going to get the pushback, I guess, from the communities because they're going in locations that the solar and wind or that other uses are similar to these types of uses. With that, so essentially what was adopted on Monday was that you would be allowed outright to have those energy projects in those industrial zones. And we would not allow for the special use permit process for other areas of the county. We did still have some general conditions for development. One of those conditions is a 100-foot setback from residentially zoned properties. So even if it is an industrial zoned property, but you're right adjacent to a residentially zoned property, you'd have to be 100 feet off of that property line when you develop your solar project or your wind project. The other thing that we made updates to, and we talked about this earlier as well in a previous meeting, is we wanted to make sure that hydrogen projects didn't fall into the category of energy projects and could be allowed outright. We wanted to make sure that this did go before the Board of Supervisors, the Commission and the Board of Supervisors, to make sure that it was a project that the county wanted. And so we carved out hydrogen projects to make sure that those did have to be in the heaviest industrial zone properties, as well as requiring a special use permit for those hydrogen projects. That special use project permit process involves notifying the public, having the Commission and the Board of Supervisors meetings as well. Some other things that did get adopted as well was that if the project is abandoned, so a solar or wind project is abandoned for more than 12 months, then they would need to remove the project. At the time of site plan, when they're developing the project, we also made sure that they provide us with a decommissioning plan that was also adopted in the new ordinance. The other thing we also wanted to make sure that was clear was that the on-site generation, so if you're just looking to put solar on your house or your business or a school or so forth, that was still something that is allowed. It's not, you're not generating, you're not creating this solar network to provide power for somebody else, but you're looking to do it for yourself. So we clarified those definitions of what is on-site and what is off-site as well in the new ordinance update. Just want to make sure I covered everything that I had highlighted. The last thing was any project or any properties that currently have the energy overlay zone right now or prior to the adoption on Monday would still also be almost grandfathered in, was also the thing that was adopted in the new ordinance. So any properties that had previously received those approvals through the Board of Supervisors with the energy overlay, they can continue to have their projects on their property. With that, I am open to any questions that you may have on the new adoption of the ordinance for energy projects.
Thank you, Director Holtree. Do we have questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Stricker?
Yes, Chairman and Scott, first off, congratulations, because you earned a promotion. I've seen you here for several months now, and you are definitely under the spotlight a lot. So congratulations on your promotion. I have a question. Do we have any approved hydrogen projects at this time that have been applied or approved with the board?
That we do not. We had one that was looking to apply for a project right before the moratorium came into place, and because of the moratorium, they have not applied.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes, I have a question. How many currently, how many applications do you have? You're saying that if they've applied before, they'll be grandfathered in, right? How many of those are active right now?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Martin, we have several that have been built out. There's a few of them down in Fort Mojave area that have been built. And then they also have land right around those parcels that have been designated for energy overlay. And they have those approvals for more solar in that area. We don't have any current applications for site plan to develop those parcels in that vicinity. The ones we do have, and we just went to the board, I think it was last month or the month prior, for an extension of time on the energy projects that are near Griffith. They have almost 2 sections of land that are that received those previous approvals. The funny thing is there are also, most of those parcels are also zoned MX, so it almost wouldn't matter. We do have a site plan in review for one of those projects, as well as the Griffith themselves are applying for a solar project, I think on the Pegasus project that's right along the 40, but that was also rezoned to industrial zoning as well. So those are the main ones that are currently in the system and that we have approvals for.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the commission? Commissioner Smith?
Chairman and Mr. Scott, when you say abandoned for over a year, what clarify for an abandonment, or just if they've shut down for one reason or another, and then do we have a timeline on to do the remediation to get it back to where it was before they started?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Smith, that's a good question. That was a topic of concern with some of the utilities and the developers. When we met with them in regards to developing this ordinance, they wanted to make sure that we had a more clear understanding of what would be, because I believe the language prior to meeting with them mentioned if the energy project was no longer in use for 12 months, then it would need to be removed, which they felt was not very clear, just based on they could be down because of some major incident on site, but they still want to operate, but because of technicalities, they couldn't operate for 12 months or something like that. We wanted to make sure that they intended to abandon the site where they no longer want to use it. So it would almost have to be that they would tell us that they are no longer going to be operating the facility for an abandonment, or removal of it would count as an abandonment as well. In the decommissioning plan, we do require that they give us an outline of how they are going to cover the costs for decommissioning the site, how long it will take, and the method of doing it. And so that would all have to be approved prior to them receiving approval for their site plan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah, so I have a question. It's probably more of an administrative one, but so if there's ever one of these, and it could be there's one of these energy overlay zones or some other use on property that the affected area is residents or whatever, or is objecting to, is there ever a situation in the county, I know we do it in Lake Havasu, where it takes a supermajority of the Board of Supervisors to approve versus just a simple majority?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Diaz, that's correct. The way that it's presented now, if an energy project wants to go into an industrial zone, they can do it without having to come to a commission or board, but those are uses that we would allow for in that area anyways. But they would also, so if they're looking to go elsewhere that does not have these industrial type zones, they would have to rezone to MX or M2. That being said, staff will take a close look at it. If it's considered spot zoning, we probably would not be recommending approval if there's no other industrial in the area, or if it doesn't match the general plan. We wouldn't most likely recommend approval. But then it does give the community to comment. The surrounding property owners would be notified, and anybody within 300 feet, if they object, and if there's more than 20% of objectors or property owners owning more than 20% of the land adjacent to the proposed rezone, then it would require that supermajority vote by the Board of Supervisors. So essentially, by the way that it's proposed, any new project, any new zoning that comes into the county would have to go to the Board of Supervisors. It has to match the general plan. It has to be in accordance with what's around that area with the zoning. Otherwise, it would be spot zoning. So, and then the surrounding property owners could have their comments. And
Thank you. I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other comments? Director Holter, I just want to say thank you. Sort of an overview of this whole thing. This has been 8 months of work that has been accomplished by staff. And really the reason that this is even offered is, Scott, maybe you can refresh everybody's memory. We had, the county had a certain number of these utility scale, and this is what this really focuses on, is these very large utility scale energy projects. It does not affect residential or commercial installations for their own purposes. It's these utility scale projects. I know we had a certain number of applications prior to the what they call the Inflation Reduction Act, and then after that was passed, I mean the applications, I think they doubled or more. Is that accurate? Do you remember the numbers? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, Mr. Chair, Supervisor Lingfelder, I don't know those numbers, but I do know we were pretty inundated with those applications. And with the moratorium, it did really put a stop to those coming in and allowed us to just kind of take a step back and say, okay, what do we want for Mojave County? What are other jurisdictions doing? And how can we best preserve our resources, our communities in Mojave County going forward? So, yeah.
Yeah. And another big reason why this was even proposed, I was actually the board member that proposed this moratorium and then taking a hard look at really shoring up our rules on how we deal with these things. First, you had, I think we had like 4 or 5 applications before the Inflation Reduction Act, and then it gets shot up to like maybe 11 or 12 applications or something like that. I think the previous director informed me of that. A couple of those projects under the former definitions of utility scale renewable were a couple of hydrogen projects, very large hydrogen projects that were proposed north of Kingman, right over the Wallapai Valley groundwater basin, which was just designated in December of 2022 as an irrigation on expansion area. And hydrogen, I think, can be very water intensive, and it just wasn't the right or the appropriate fit for those types of projects. So thankfully we saw those go away. And at the same time, we've seen, while this is only going to be applicable to those properties that the county has ultimate jurisdiction over, at the same time, we've seen our counterparts at the BLM, they're doing a refresh on their Western States solar plan. So I think that this was very well timed to look at ours. But we're seeing really tens of thousands of acres being proposed on federally managed lands right now for both solar and wind applications. I know up in Commissioner Barlow's area, that part of District 1, when we have a couple of big projects that we're monitoring on federally managed lands. One is called the Hurricane Wash Wind Project, which is proposed on, I believe, around 70,000 acres of federally managed lands, just bordering their new national monument that they designated. And depending upon the size of those turbines, it would be, I think, up to 220 of the smaller ones or 120 something of the very large ones. And if you've been up to that area, it's a very beautiful area. I think personally, my own opinion, it'd be a shame to see a bunch of those eerie blinking red lights and seeing those things sort of poisoning the viewscape up there. But appreciate all the work that you've done. I know it's been a very thorough process, and I think it's going to serve Mojave County very well. The only other thing that I would ask, I'm not sure if it'd be a terribly heavy lift for you and your staff, but would it be possible to bring maps to a subsequent commission meeting that would maybe show the current energy overlay districts that are grandfathered in, where projects might be going in, just for visual reference for the commissioners? And it might be something that the public is interested in seeing as well.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, absolutely, that's something that we can do for the next
Terrific.
meeting.
I'll do one last call. Is there any other discussion points on this item before we move on? All right, hearing none. We'll move to item number 6, Commissioner comments and request for agenda items for the next meeting, and I'll just go right down the line. Give everybody a chance to share what they'd like to share. Commissioner Barlow.
I would just echo the maps and things. What I've learned in our community up there is pictures tell a bigger story. So, for instance, this windmill thing, we weren't getting any traction trying to get the public notified, and I found a map showing the area that they wanted to put these on, and all of a sudden everybody was interested. So maps, pictures, whatever is a good thing.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. Yeah, 2 things. June 12th, I gave a handout on this. It's a virtual thing that BLM's doing where you can log on at, I think, at 6 o'clock that evening. I encourage you to get into this. It gives you a chance to see what BLM's got in mind for these 3 projects. So just encourage you to get with it on that, and also to get onto BLM's website, and they have all kinds of different information on different things coming up. I know that I have a map that I've got at home that shows 225,000 acres in Mojave County alone that they want to enter into their, they call it renewable energy projects. And secondly, I don't know how many of you know anything about Blue Ribbon Coalition, but they're a group that's been around for a long time. I'm a life member. It's a real informative thing. Go on their website. I attended a meeting down in Havasu a couple of months ago where Mr. Ben Burr, who is the executive director, put on a presentation on how, as a group, you can battle some of these things. They have the blueprint, or a good blueprint started on how to battle these things. They're the ones that Blue Ribbon started the lawsuit against the closure of all the trails up in Moab, Utah. I don't know if anybody knows about Moab much, but it's a premier off-roading area where thousands and thousands of off-roaders go there. I go there at least once a year. And I propose that the commission approach the board about having Blue Ribbon come to a board meeting in the future, and I could make the contacts with Mr. Ben Burr and get that organized. I don't know how soon, but I'd want approval before I would contact Blue Ribbon. And he could come and give a talk at one of the board meetings on how we can proceed better with better ideas on how to battle this. And that's just a proposal I'm giving to the commission.
Thank you. That's a great suggestion. I think that that's a wonderful idea. Commissioner Diaz.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback. Yeah, I definitely like the map idea. And to piggyback what Mr. Smith was just saying, there is strength in numbers. And we have to fight back against this, trying to add this conservation as a use. You know, that's just a Trojan horse for taking more of our public lands to keep us off of it. So I agree 100%. That Blue Ribbon thing is a great idea. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Martin.
Yes, I agree with that. Everything that's been said so far about this, and that we probably ought to look into this Blue Ribbon group, because I read through their materials and I think they're spot on with what they're saying about just, I call it misuse of public lands. You can't, to me, you can't convert public lands that have been multiple use for hundreds of years into single use. You can and call it progress or anything else you want. So, and I think that in Mojave County, especially, we're a rural county, and we have to set an example, I think, for the rest of the state and say, hey, we don't want this. We don't need this. We don't want it. It will change our scenery. It destroys our Western values, and we don't want it. And then along those lines, there's this meeting's coming up on June 12th, this solar variance meeting, and it deals with Marketplace Solar, White Hills Solar, and West Solar Iridia 3. I think we all ought to be at that meeting. I know I've already signed up to attend, but I can tell you right now, I'm learning about these applications that are just pouring into BLM. I spoke at the Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday about a couple of them out north of town. They want to do like 5,000 acres of solar. They want to do 22 square miles of wind generators out there. And I know why they want to do it, because it's set right along that corridor out there. But again, that will completely change the face of Wallapai Valley. I mean, and when you talk to the citizens and you say, well, what do you want to see? You want to see a sea of solar panels and wind generators all over our county like they are up in Nevada? And the overwhelming answer that I hear is no, we don't want to see that. We don't want to be part of it. So I think it behooves us as commission members to be at those meetings and to talk about them. I know tonight there's a special meeting that RE Energy is doing tonight at the Dam Bar. I was invited to go to it, and I think Supervisor Lincoln Felton and Supervisor Bishop was also invited. When I was contacted about it, I asked if all of the District 4 candidates would be invited to it and was told they were not. So based upon the fact that our two commissioners and the other candidates were not even invited to it, I have declined to go. But I really would like to hear, I know in talking with Mr. Barbarich, I understand what his concerns are about needing electricity for his project up in White Hills. And I understand that. And that's why I wanted to hear what they were proposing, because he had indicated that they were willing to sell him power for his development. And I thought, well, that's all well and fine. If power is being generated on site in Mojave County with Mojave County resources and it stays in Mojave County, that's one thing. But to say we're going to put 10,000 solar panels out there and you're going to get a little bit of the pie and the rest of it's going on the grid, again, to me that is total misuse of public lands. And we got to stay involved in this. And I understand it's a federal project. My sincere fear is when one of these things gets approved, just one, it's going to be like a domino. It's going to go thump, 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 thump. BLM is pushing this, and I say BLM, and I got to be fair about this. I know some of the BLM people in this area, and I can tell you they are not part of this Biden, let's do the Western solar and just make everybody in the Western United States a sea of solar panels. They are not doing that. They're not supporting that, but they have jobs, and their jobs, when their boss says, you're going to promote this, well, you got a decision to make. You're either going to promote it or get the heck out and do something else. So, I have empathy for a lot of our BLM people here in Mojave County because they really don't like what's being forced down their throats that is ultimately being tried to force down our throats, not only as county people, but as city or as citizens of Mojave County. And we really got to stay on top of this. And they're just popping up. They're popping up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. I mean, they're giving them all these monetary incentives to do this. And they said, hey, you want 5,000 acres, $15 an acre? We'll take your application. Let's go for it. And we, as a county and as citizens of this county, we got to stay in front of this thing. If we don't, all of a sudden we're going to wake up one day and we're going to see doop, 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 doop. And we're going to see that all over our county. And I, for one, will never support turning Mojave County into a sea of solar, wind, or hydrogen.
Thank you. Commissioner Stricker.
Yes, so I just ditto to everybody's comments. And yeah, we just have to be aware as the public between the federal sector and then the private sector of a lot of these projects coming in. It's convenient. We have a lot of land available and we don't want that snowball effect to happen. And so I agree.
Thank you. As Mojave County, I think Mojave County is actually leading, at least in Arizona, we're trying to lead by example. I think we're the only county in Arizona that's actually looked at its the way it approaches these renewable energy projects, these utility scale projects. And I know that because when the moratorium first went into effect, we got a call from the governor's office and they were worried that what Mojave County was doing was going to sort of start to catch on with other rural counties. And yeah, not necessarily the worst thing that happened, that's for sure. But I think that our staff has done a very good job and our board of supervisors has done a very good job with representing the values of the citizens that we represent. I know that on all of these projects, every single one of these utility projects or wind projects that are being analyzed and possible, that as a cooperating agency, we're sending comment letters from Mojave County basically saying, this is how our citizens feel about this. And, you know, in theory, the BLM is supposed to be giving cooperating agencies' comments additional weight. I'm not sure if that happens or not, but at least we're on the record with representing the way that our citizens feel about this. Mojave County is very, very rich in natural amenities. It's very rich in tourism. And I don't think that the visitors and the tourists that come here to see a bunch of solar panels and wind turbines. They come here for our natural vistas and our landscapes and our wildlife and what really makes Mojave County special. And I can tell you as one board member, and I think all of our board is really committed to, and I know everybody here on our commission is committed to maintaining what keeps Mojave County special. So the only other comment I would have, and I didn't see it on our agenda, but attached to your agenda packet this morning, we have a letter, speaking of letters, from the Mojave County Development Services Department. This is something that, again, our Board of Supervisors has basically instructed Development Services staff that we want to weigh in on this as a cooperating agency. This is a comment letter on draft business plans for modernizing recreational fee sites. The BLM is looking at modernizing their recreational fee sites for the Virgin River Canyon Recreation Area. They're looking at upping fees. The fee sites around the Kingman Field office, they're looking at upping fee sites or fees at their sites, and then also down at the Lake Havasu Field office. So if you haven't seen that letter, it'd be good to read that. And I'm glad that letter is going to be going to the BLM for their consideration.
Mr. Chair,
Director Holtree.
if I could just say one thing on
Please.
this letter. Comments to the BLM are due by June 12th. So if you could get me if you have any additional comments to this letter, please get those to me prior to that so we can make sure we get our comments to them by June 12th.
Director Holtree, thank you. That's a very important point. Thank you for that. Commissioner Diaz. Yeah, we'll make sure that you have, if you don't already have contact information for those on staff and the electeds, we'll make sure that you have all of their contact information. Director Palmer, did you have anything that you wanted to add for the good of the order from Parks Department?
Chairman, I have nothing to add this time.
Okay, great. And Assessor Kench, thank you for joining us this morning. Anything that you'd like to offer for the good of the order?
Thank you, Chairman. The only thing I would maybe, if we can get Unisource or one of the power companies in to give us an explanation of where the power goes from these solar units, if it's on site, if it's staying. Let's say they don't want to do battery, but they want to put it into the electric grid. Are we still not going to like that? I'd sure like to get that kind of detailed information, and so I would just recommend that if possible.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think that might be good to maybe work and see if the utilities can come and maybe just describe what their company's views are as far as how power is produced. I think in February of this year, actually, the Arizona Corporation Commission, they got rid of the renewable energy standard and basically just said, we're going to let the private market decide how power is produced. So maybe with that decision, we could get either Unisource or MEC or some of the other providers to come in and just, how has that decision from the Arizona Corporation Commission really influenced their company's overall portfolio and how they're going to be, approaching producing power in the future. Thank you. I think that is it for the agenda. So I want to thank you everybody for coming. And if you're watching, thank you for watching. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.